Dear guests, welcome to our the second slot of our panel, which will present the best examples from the Turkish private sector on green transition. As you all know, the companies play a key role in building a sustainable economy and society. As of today, we know that more than 3,000 multinational companies have declared their net zero targets and aiming to transform their whole value chain in the next 20, 30 years. The consumer are also translating their sustainability concerns into action, trying to buy products from sustainable companies. Besides the environmental concerns, human rights, equality, health and safety for all, the prevention of child labor, business ethics, and etc., which will be very, very important. Thus, in this panel, we will be discussing this transition along with the challenges encountered and the opportunities lying ahead, together with my colleagues from various sectors. The several best examples from our private sector will be touched upon by the distinguished and representative of the important sectors in Turkey. Before proceeding with our panel discussion, I would like to present our distinguished speakers. Nevra Aydoğan, Head of the Sustainability of Costa, Özcan Bülbül, Public Affairs, Sustainability and Communications Director at Abdi Ibrahim, Seda Çınlar, Group Sustainability Manager at the Coca-Cola TCI, and Çağatay Ölken, Strategy and Sustainable Director at Tüpraş. Seda Hanım, as you know, the transition to a sustainable and green economy brings both important risks and opportunities. Foremost among these is the large amount of the additional financing needs arising from the investments necessary for the transition to a sustainable economy. My question is, what kind of the best practices has TCI implemented along its value chain, and can you mention about your near and long-term targets on environmental and social issues, please?
Thanks very much, Fatih Bey. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Like you mentioned in the first part of your question, financing is very important, because even though we know from most research that companies with higher ESG performance outperform the market, but to be able to realize the benefits, we need the financing is the prerequisite. That's why, and the amount of investments may vary across emerging geographies versus developed region. That's why I would like to share just my presentation to show you the operating geography of TCI. We are a multinational beverage company headquartered in Turkey, and we operate in Turkey, Pakistan, Middle East, and Central Asia in 11 countries with 30 production sites. And innovative financial mechanisms play a critical role for us. Having said that, I would like to talk about what the sustainability bond that we issued in the beginning of this year. It's the $500 million 7-year maturity bond, and it is the beverage industry's first sustainability bond in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. We linked the bond with our water efficiency target, but throughout the process, we received second-party opinion from Sustainalytics for both our energy efficiency and water efficiency targets, which were both rated as ambitious. And this way, we linked our funding strategy with this sustainability focus. The water efficiency target in this bond is actually sitting in a bigger framework for us, which is the 2030 sustainability commitments, the 2030 sustainability pledge. We took into account our stakeholders' expectations as well as the business growth rate and shaped our targets under 6 core focus areas. So our operating geography that I mentioned, has its own challenges, but also has its own opportunities. The core environmental focus areas are packaging, water, and climate. Packaging, the first one is around the design phase. We will commit to continue to make 100% of our packaging material recyclable and use at least 50% rPET recycled plastic by 2030. Our strategy in the design phase is about reducing first. So since 2008, CCI has been conducting lightweighting efforts on primary and secondary packaging and already have eliminated 15,000 tons of virgin material. We are also a signatory to the Business Initiative for Plastic, İPG, İş Dünyası Plastik Girişimi. And for reuse, as the second step, we have reusable glass bottles in practice in Turkey and Pakistan, which circulates up to 8 trips. As for rPET, we strive to increase the percentage. Currently in Turkey, we have 50% rPET in 1 liter sparkling beverages and fruit juice and iced tea products. Now, we want to take it up to 50% across the whole CCI geography. To be able to do that, we need to collect the packaging and recycle as well, because it's about closing the loop and enabling access to high quality and clean material. So we commit to collect our packaging in Turkey, Pakistan, and Kazakhstan. These are the 3 countries where we have some sort of formal or informal infrastructure or collection scheme in place. In the other countries where we don't have any recycling infrastructure at all, we aim to work together with other stakeholders, such as customers, partnering with customers, to have scalable projects, initiatives, and pave the way. An example is the plastic collection project we have in Azerbaijan in the Koreka channel. The second area is water. It's one of our key ingredients, and we aim to increase our water efficiency by 20% by 2030. This is aligned with our sustainability link bond. The second one is about communities' access to water. We commit to help secure water availability in water-stressed locations through community projects. So far, we have already had replenished 12 billion liters through partnering with NGOs. And we also have a project called Pani in Pakistan. We have water filtration stations that enable access to clean and free water for over 1 million people in Pakistan. Now, our priority countries going ahead will be Turkey, Pakistan, and Jordan. And this time, though, we will be aiming for more basin-specific and local water stewardship projects. Coming to the climate, we have 2 targets. And before that, I'd like to mention again, our geography is one of the most climate vulnerable geographies, so it's very critical that we take action on this part as well. The first commitment is on direct emissions, Scope 1 and 2. We commit to run our manufacturing sites on 100% renewable electricity and make them carbon neutral. The second commitment builds on to the first one, but it engages the whole value chain. It's about reducing our total absolute emissions by 13% by 2030, and the base year is 2050. I'd like to quickly go over the methodology. So we took our base year and the whole value chain in 5 pillars, and we analyzed the breakdown of our emissions. And then we looked at the business growth in our geography, and we foresaw that if we were to continue business as usual, our carbon emissions would be increasing by 74%. Then we developed a list of the mitigation actions to determine the investments required. Packaging, I've already gone over. For manufacturing, to make it carbon neutral, we will continue with the energy efficiency practices. But on the path to decarbonizing, 20% of that will come from direct investments in solar and wind energy in Turkey, Pakistan, Jordan, and Iraq. For the remaining 80%, we'll try to consider and cover it mostly through green energy purchase. Only when the first 2 options are not applicable, then we will consult offsetting via certification. In ingredients, we will focus on sustainable sourcing. We have already invited our suppliers, corresponding to 80% of our spend, to report to our EcoVadis platform for supplier scorecard. For distribution, we will focus on route optimization and complement it with electrifying the fleet. And lastly, where we have the biggest share in emissions, it's about coolers that we provide to our customers at the sales locations. We will spread our best practice of environmental friendly coolers. These coolers are equipped with energy-saving device. They are equipped with LED lights, and they are HFC-free. And what that means is that these coolers' global warming potential is 1,000 times less than the other ones. We will also make some improvements to the assets, the coolers, such as adding doors and also trialing temperature increase. And this way, we aim to reduce absolute carbon emissions by 13% minimum along the value chain while growing the business in the meanwhile. Our social targets revolve around compliance with CCI human rights policy and increasing the ratio of the women workforce in our workforce. And community target feeds both the environmental and the social because we're going to address 3 W's: women empowerment, water replenishment, and waste management. If I have time, I'd like just one additional note. In the sustainability linked bond, one of our primary investors was EBRD, and they are very keen on women empowerment. So we have been interacting with them for women empowerment as well, which is to say that although we link this sustainability linked bond to an environmental target, it also indirectly corresponds to our social targets as well. Now we have our metrics and KPIs defined to track progress, and we will be considering and keeping track of the TCFD, SBTI, and net zero discussions and adapt as needed on the way forward. Thank you.
Seda Hanım, thank you. Now, the Çağatay Bey, as you know, the energy transition is a very important challenge that private sector is currently facing. The large-scale companies are investing in energy transition and taking effort for the implementation throughout the whole value chain. It is obvious that the carbon neutrality target can only be achieved through new and clean energy resources with the support of some breakthrough technologies. For instance, the green hydrogen and sustainable aviation fuel will be critical in the decarbonization efforts. Can you please elaborate on your effort for the energy transition of Turkey and your project portfolio in this regard?
Thanks a lot, Fatih, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here to explain where we are and what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to contribute to Turkey's plans in this regard. As you stated, energy market is the main emission source for the world, and we all have been hearing how we can diversify from this market and how we can transition into low carbon and ideally zero carbon sources. And I'm here today trying to explain what TÜPRAŞ is playing within this field and how we're trying to take the leadership in our country. First of all, this is before going into what we're going to do in the market, I'll just want to highlight for those who don't know, who doesn't know Turkish, TÜPRAŞ, and just explain a little bit who we are. TÜPRAŞ is the largest corporation, private company in Turkey, and we are also one of the largest refining players in the region, especially in Europe. We are also a very complex and a profitable business. But this oil and gas business, you hear from everyone, is a very tough business to be in right now. And we also listened to IPM's forecast yesterday. We also discussed Turkey's new NDC and the role of transportation within all these. And we've been hearing that the transportation is actually one of the most costly areas to decarbonize. But I'm glad to say that TÜPRAŞ, we are trying to be in the forefront of our of Turkey's decarbonization plans. You know, we announced it yesterday. We said from a baseline growth, we will be reducing our emissions by 40%. But as TÜPRAŞ, we are committing to reduce our emissions by 27% in absolute terms. So this is above and beyond what our country's ambition is. So we are really trying to take the leadership here. And the reason being, if TÜPRAŞ or companies like us, the large conglomerates, the CCIs, Abdi Ibrahim and other companies in Turkey doesn't take the leadership, it's really hard to make people believe in the transition itself. So we need to take that first step. So, and this is kind of our anniversary for our transition plan. We announced it last year, right after Turkey ratified the Paris Agreement in the Senate, and we were lucky to see that we were uh, uh, again leading the Turkish transition plans. But now, within the updated plan, we're still playing a material role, and we set our goal to be the leader of future energy in Turkey, and we want to transition our current leadership into future leadership as well. And how we're going to do this? We need to capitalize on our core competencies. So we are a large conglomerate. We know how to produce stuff, and we have a really good distribution network. We reach everywhere. So we need to be doing this really carefully. So we decided to invest in three major areas. And I don't know whether you heard these, but SAF is one of them. Turkey, having the home country for Turkish Airlines, Istanbul Airport, we are really big on the global scale in aviation. So if we're going to support our aviation market, we need to support it from an energy perspective as well. So as Tüpraş, we want to take the leadership in that and make sure the airlines and the aviation industry gets this sustainable aviation fuel of the future, and we will be supplying that as the leader of the market. We are also going to play a big role in hydrogen. Hydrogen is, we are actually, probably a lot of you don't know, but we are already the largest hydrogen consumer as well as the producer in Turkey, because refineries consume a lot of hydrogen. So we want to translate this internal hydrogen knowledge, and we want to use it for third parties and other corporations. So we want to take the leadership in that. And in order to do that, green hydrogen requires a lot of electricity. So we said we need to be also the largest zero carbon electricity provider in Turkey, because we will use those electrons and convert it to hydrogen to create a valuable value chain. And the last piece in our plan is actually our core business, which is the refining, because we know as the incumbent player in Turkey, we have a responsibility to supply the energy needs of the country as long as they are in the market. So if the consumers need it, we need to be there to supply it. But we're saying we need to do this in a sustainable and a profitable way. That's why we're committing not to increase our capacity in the fossil business, which is a big commitment, by the way, considering Turkey is going to grow and going to peak its emissions in 2038, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be more energy needed. But we're saying we're going to supply this energy through zero carbon sources like hydrogen and other stuff. I'm just going to, conscious of time, I'm just going to touch a few points. In refining is going to be the source of our income and funds for the transition, because this transition is really big and it requires a lot of investments. We are planning to invest around $5 billion by 2035, and that $5 billion is going to be sourced from our existing business. But that existing business, if you look at the bottom left, we used to spend $400 million in that business over the last 15 years since we acquired the Tüpraş from a private station. We're saying we're going to reduce it more than half within the next 8 to 10 years by 2030. And even beyond that, we will reduce it to 1/3 of what it actually was over the last 20 years to make sure it is run sustainably, but nothing beyond that. And we will be focusing on energy efficiency. This is really big. We are making a lot of savings on this front, and we will also invest in more valuable streams like petrochemicals and other stuff. As I said in the aviation, I'm not going to repeat it, but our ambition is to supply like 10% of the market. This is much better now. 10% of the market by 2030, and this is actually what the country needs, and we're going to triple that capacity by 2035. And this is how we're going to be the leaders. And 400,000 tons is our production target for 2030, and it's actually 10% market share in Europe as well. So it's going to be a sizable business. If you look at the electricity, as I said, we are not in the electricity business to sell electricity. We're going to be in the electricity business to supply our hydrogen business. And if you look at the top left, you'll see by 2030 and 2035, we will be using more than 80% of the electricity we generate for hydrogen production, which is going to be our core business going forward. And in order to achieve these, we have taken a lot of steps. We are acquired NTEC, so we have like 400 megawatts right now, and our target is 1 gigawatt by 2030, so we are almost there. But we will be investing more in the coming years to make sure we reach what we are aiming to. And the last but not the least, this is going to be our core business, the green hydrogen business. 400 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity is our 2030 target. And we're going to start it with refinery hydrogen because, as you might also heard throughout the conference, carrying or transporting hydrogen is really expensive and hard. So we're going to first start with what we're consuming. And this is a huge emission source, by the way. So we're going to switch from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen for our refineries. And by 2040, we will be converting all of our internal consumption into green hydrogen. And we are expecting to sell green hydrogen by 2030 to heavy transport. And in the further years, we think that hydrogen is going to play a big role in the aviation market as well. But it's a longer term play, so we're not saying anything at this moment on this business. But this is going to be the last slide. So we don't see decarbonization as a defensive play. We think it's a big opportunity. We see this as a profitable business going forward. So we are going to be doing green hydrogen because we think we will create a lot of value for our stakeholders. We will be in SAF because it's going to be profitable. We are going to be in electricity because it's going to be enabling the hydrogen production and the profits there. So this emission reduction is actually a result of our growth strategy and our transition strategy. So if you look at decarbonization as a defensive play, it's just cost. But we think it just the other way around. We're thinking it's a big opportunity, and we are big believers that by converting into a low carbon business, we can also be profitable as well. Thanks a lot for listening me, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Çağatay Bey. So now Oğuzcan Bey, in this challenging period where the resources are so scarce and environmental risks are so high, achieving a circular economy is getting much more critical. The further development and the cooperation on durability, recycled content, and recyclability is needed worldwide to contribute to a circular economy. I believe that there are challenges also in your sector. Can you please elaborate on what kind of practices do you carry on in the terms of developing new technologies and solutions that use natural resources responsibly during production and develop products that include more recycled and alternative raw materials with a high recyclability rate?
Fatih Bey, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with my fellow panelists. My name is Oğuzcan Bülbül. I am, as Fatih Bey mentioned, Sustainability Director of Abdi İbrahim. Abdi İbrahim is a market leader pharmaceutical company in Turkey since 2002. And it's now a third generation, ruled by third generation pharmacists. So we are also a heavy believer of sustainability and the competitive advantage that the green transformation brings, like Çağatay Bey mentioned. Today I'm going to briefly mention about our packaging strategy. It is called Green Harmonization, and it's a extensive and comprehensive packaging strategy of Abdi Ibrahim. And the main aim of this strategy is to reduce, switch, and recollect. So it consists of three sub-stages. And the first stage is the smart software. It is a university and industry collaboration. And we already complete the software, by the way. And the main aim of the software is to reduce our primary and secondary packagings inside the medicines. It is maybe one of the first software in world pharma industry. Of course, there are lots of optimization algorithms around the world, but this algorithm is specifically aimed to curb our carbon emissions. Therefore, we started coding this algorithm and enter every single aspect and specs of the production line. So, as you can imagine, the algorithm becomes larger and bigger every day. And then we decided to divide the algorithm into two. So one is the mathematical model, and the other one is heuristic model. So those two models checks each other's results. And we run this program. As I said, we completed this program. We run this program for 36 products of Abdi Ibrahim. And it's roughly 100 million packs. It's equal to 100 million packs. And the artificial intelligence not only provides 1 million euros of cost saving from the materials, but also 6 weeks of released capacity. If you can imagine how big the carbon emissions from 6 weeks of released capacity, that would be enormous for us. So, and then we would like to also do this for our whole portfolio. And we are in a stage of suggesting this program and the results to our other customers as well. So this is the first stage, so reduce stage, and the switch state is another industry university collaboration we are making with Sabancı University, and we are trying to develop a biodegradable polymer. Luckily we have just completed the production of first prototype. I have it with me. We are going to start, of course, in the consumer health products, because consumer health products, as you can imagine, the boxes we need to tick is fewer than the medicine itself. So we would like to switch the plastic and PVC in the tubes and the packs of the vitamins we produce. And then if everything goes well, we are, of course, would like to move to the blisters where the real carbon volume lies. And as the third step, to recollect, that is going to be the most hardest one, because because of the classification of the waste of pharmaceutical industry all around the world, by the way, not only in Turkey, it is hazardous waste. So we need to incinerate the waste. So there we need a regulation change, actually. What we dream is we would like to initiate a nationwide campaign, recollection campaign, and then once we recollect the expired products or used and finished products, so the primary and the secondary packaging, we would like to bring them to a separation facility where we can separate the medicine and the valuable primary and secondary packagings, because there are aluminums, there are PVC, there are plastics, there are glass, so there are all valuable materials. Now we incinerate them. But hopefully in the future, we separate them from the medicine. And for the medicine, I'm sorry, but the only way to destroy the medicine, quote unquote, eco-friendly way, is to incinerate. For now, maybe in the future, we will find another way of doing it. But for now, we need to incinerate. But for the other parts, we can always separate them, and we can create raw or semi-raw material for other industries. So that's basically our packaging strategy, Fatih Bey.
Thank you very much. So now the Nevra Hanım, an effective and sustainable management of the supply chain, is also strategic for the transformation of the whole ecosystem. The new legislation, such as EU's corporate sustainability due diligence German supply chain law will push companies to examine their supply chain in more detail in terms of human rights and environment in the coming period. As CORSA, what kind of practices are you conducting for supply chain evaluation and integrating your suppliers into the commitment and target defining processes? Please.
Thank you, Fatih Bey. And first of all, I would like to also thank you, all of you. This is a great platform to sharing information and experience that we have done. So thank you again. Just before replying to the question, in fact, just a quick summary of the Corsa. We are a company a part of Sabancı Holding, which is one of the biggest holding company in Turkey. And Corsa, we have 13 facilities in 5 countries: Turkey, Indonesia, Thailand, USA, and Brazil. And we have 3 main business lines: tire reinforcement, composite, and construction. And by its DNA, in fact, our products lightening the vehicles, the aerospace, or the automotive industry. And at our tire businesses, we are producing tire cord fabrics, and globally, we have today our tire reinforcement technologies. We reinforce 1 out of every 3 automotive tires and 2 out of every 3 aircraft tires worldwide. So coming to the question, we are managing sustainability efforts under 4 main pillars: social, sustainable product, responsible supply chain, and responsible production. So under social, we are managing our social effect generally on society and business ethics, as well as our sustainable employment issues. For sustainable product, this is the main outcome of our performance. So we are managing a transformation of our product portfolio from conventional to bio-based, recycled, or renewable material-based. And we have 62 sustainable products in our all product portfolio. It is important because our industry is very traditional, and the conventional products are mainly the main preferences. So we depend on the regulations in the EU or the US regulations. So this kind of product range is very important for us. 12% of our revenue is derived from these sustainable products. And we use United Nations taxonomy methodology: mitigation, enabler, transition, and positive social impacts are the 4 dimensions that we use as a categorization of our product portfolio. And under responsible production, we are mainly managing decarbonization roadmap of all our facilities and of all our products, as well as waste and water reduction projects. And to going a little bit deeper on this sustainable, responsible supply chain, we have started this program in 2020. And at the beginning, we decided our supplier code of conduct, which clearly defines our expectations from our suppliers in a global wise. So after that, we made a supplier mapping based on Kraliç matrix. This is something spend analysis depend on the Corsa's global purchasing. And it was important because we got the data that 20% of our suppliers are the main and the most critical ones. They have the most emission impact on our final product. So we began the concentration, our program, to this 20% of our critical raw material suppliers. But sure that we asked of all our suppliers to sign this Corsa supplier code of conduct. Apart that, every year we are running sustainability audits to our critical raw material suppliers, and also we are using EcoVadis as an evaluation tool, ESG evaluation tool, and it gives us the opportunity to understand our customers' suppliers' performance in labor and human rights, environment, business ethics and sustainable procurement as well. So also we are conducting a sustainability survey. This is a self-assessment, but also it gives us the opportunity to our suppliers to understand their achievement and their situation there. So with all of this in our pockets, we are making some review analysis quarterly with our suppliers working groups. It's important because we give also feedbacks to our suppliers and we ask them to come up with some projects to define their improvements on that road. And finally, emission part is very crucial for us. Since 2020, we are calculating our Scope 3 emissions based on also our suppliers' effect on emissions, and we are getting audited by a third-party auditor, these GHG emissions. And now we made our commitment science-based target initiatives for Scope 1, 2, and 3 as well. And now we are asking also our suppliers to engage with these science-based target initiatives to provide low-carbon products to Kordsa, not also Kordsa, but to all of the ecosystem. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nevra Hanım. Now, in the second round of our panel, I'd like to start with the Nevra Hanım again. My question will be the same for all the panelists. My question is, Nevra Hanım, you know, the green transition requires all stakeholders work together in synergy. In order to be successful in the green transition process, which efforts should be carried out by stakeholders in the coming period? And which actors will be responsible for these efforts? Please.
Thank you, Fatih Bey, again. At Kordsa, we have set our science-based target initiatives. So for all of this decarbonization roadmap, not only decarbonization, but all of the aspects of the sustainability, firstly, we have to define this strategy and we have to involve our stakeholders at this journey and ask their needs and the way that they can also join to that road, their needs and improvement plans. So at Kordsa, we have a target to be a net zero company at least by 2050. And we have interim targets as well. At 2030, we would like to obtain a decrease by 46.2. And for that, now we are making so many investments for this decarbonization, not only the production level, but also at the raw material level, as well as the trainings to all our stakeholders inside and outside. And renewable energy is very crucial for that. So we have done our investment to Indonesia plant. Now we are working for our Chattanooga, USA plant, as well as Thailand plant. And at our Turkey, we are using IREX certificates. But this is not sufficient to achieve these targets. We have to invite and join all the stakeholders, the customers, the employers, and as well as the suppliers. Because this is a journey to go all together. If we will stay alone, it won't be easy to make a big impact on this whole value chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Olcan Bey?
Fatih Bey, pharmaceutical industry is a little bit different from the other industries since our one of the main stakeholders is government, of course, like globally, all around the world. So I can give you 3 small examples that will show us, the support we need from the governmental side as well. So the first one is as I mentioned in the first round, for the recycling, for the circularity of pharmaceutical industry. Now it's close to zero almost. And unfortunately, this is the case in Europe and in the US as well. We all incinerate the, the waste. So there is a huge regulatory touch we need there. Therefore, in the medium term, with the positive support of Paris Agreement and everything's going on right now, hopefully we might see a window of opportunity to physically separate the waste of medicine. So the other example is that another project we are working on is the leaflets. The leaflets in the boxes of the medicine. In this industry, we use we produce 2.5 billion packs of medicine every year in Turkey, only in Turkey. So that means more or less A4 size paper, 2.5 billion sheets of A4 size paper. That is, if you put them on top of each other, it will make a 6-kilometer high tower every year, only in Turkey. Now you can multiply this to see the world, what's going on around the world. Therefore, we are trying to take advantage of the digitalization efforts in Turkey. So we would like to put the information on the leaflet inside the QR code on the boxes. And then we approached the ministry, of course, and we are still in negotiation. But as far as I can say, they are not very positive about putting the leaflets into the QR code yet. But hopefully, maybe in the near future, we can also do it. Not only for the carbon, it will save around 4,000 tons of carbon equivalent, by the way. It's a huge amount. But also, it's the only carbon emissions from the production of this paper. And if you take into account the trees we save, that will multiply the effect, of course. And the last example I can give, and unfortunately our stakeholder is again the Ministry of Health, is we try to remove the spoons and the drinking cups inside the syrups. These are all unuser-friendly items, as you may all know. Once you use it, it becomes gluier and stickier. Every time it sticks to the box or something like that. So we try to remove the plastics from the syrups. And now we are also negotiating with the TÜSİAD. They are our main regulatory authority, along with the Ministry of Health, of course. So there are lots of similar examples I can give, but the main idea is, to this end, we all need, as SDG 17, we need collaboration. We need to do. We can do it only together. So there are lots of regulatory touches we need in pharmaceuticals industry. Hopefully, in the medium term, we'd like to see some. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Çağatay Bey, please.
Thanks a lot, Fatih Bey. Like you said, our largest stakeholder is the public. So energy market is where, first of all, is a big income for the public funds. So there's a lot of taxation on it. So there's a big dilemma how we're going to replace that tax if we go from fuel sources, fossil fuels, to electricity, to hydrogen, etc. Because that electricity and hydrogen is already very expensive. So in order to make them more viable solutions, there needs to be certain advantages from the taxation perspective as well. So that is one of the major discussions we need to engage with the public authorities. And the second one is the infrastructure, because the energy requires, once you produce it, you need to transfer it to the consumers, and it can be bulk, it can be residential, it can be retail, but you need to get a lot of permissions from the government. For example, I can start with hydrogen. Hydrogen requires special pipelines. So those special pipelines, and as Turkey, we have a great renewable potential that we can convert it to hydrogen and export it to Europe, because Europe is going to be in deficit. But the best way to do this is through pipelines. And in Turkey, pipelines can only be done by the public authorities. So unless the government decides to lay down the pipes, you cannot export that hydrogen you produce here in Turkey, and you cannot bring in valuable dollars and euros to our economy. So that infrastructure part requires a lot of public partnership or public intervention. And coming back to other stakeholders, for example, we are a large manufacturer, but retail is the specialty of other companies. For example, in our group, we have companies like Opet, we have iGaz. They are specialized in the micro distribution of it or retail part of it. So they are going to need to invest in new types of dispensers and fueling stations and everything. We are also going to need other companies like Arçelik Fatih Bey coming up with new equipment working with hydrogen, new boilers working with hydrogen. So this energy transition that we are trying to be a major part is not something that we can do alone. We need everyone, starting with the public and ending with the consumers, because if the consumers insist on consuming the fossil fuels, we need to supply this because we need to make sure it's the security. And the current crisis showed us, everyone, reminded again, this transition needs to be done in a more balanced way, because if you don't do it in a balanced fashion and carefully, it's going to be the consumers who's going to pay the price. It's going to be the pump price. It's going to be the electricity price. It's going to be the gas price that we're going to jump, and the consumer's going to suffer. And if this, for example, in Europe or in other countries, even in our country, there are support schemes to subsidize these high energy prices at the moment. But this cannot go forever. I mean, the governments can only do this for a year, maybe two. But if the transition is not done in a proper fashion, we're all going to suffer. So this is what we're trying to avoid, and this is what we're trying to make sure this collaboration is done together with everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It's really critical. Now, before my closing note, Seda Hanım, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fatih Bey. I will echo a bit of what the other panelists have already mentioned. So, but all the sustainability issues require multi-stakeholder efforts. And for like when we were preparing the 2030 pledge, we actually conducted multiple stakeholder dialogue workshops in multiple countries and listened to their feedback before determining the targets. And then from the regulatory perspective, it's important to involve the private sector and the business interest groups within the decision-making process. Again, for the beverage industry, one of the big issues is the waste management and addressing tackling the waste pollution. So, but it's an issue bigger than one company, and it involves a diverse group of stakeholders, including the beverage industry, the customers, consumers, recyclers, and the regulatory bodies. It's important to incentivize the private sectors for sustainable practices as well. And when establishing systems, transparency is key to measuring the actual impact measurement. For instance, as CCI, we have been reporting our ESG data since 2009 on annual basis through annual reports. And also we are a public company, and we report to the reputable ESG platforms such as CDP. We are listed on the Istanbul Stock Exchange Sustainability Index, and MSCI and FTSE4Good and S&P Global. And those help with our credibility and improving our performance as well. And lastly, like for the companies, they have a big responsibility for transformation. Addressing Scope 3 emissions is very important. So transforming both the upstream and the downstream value chain is critical. Identifying opportunities for circularity is very important, and also making use of digitalization. For instance, in Turkey, in some of our plants, we have already started the digital twin application, which helps save electricity, water, save chemicals, and also includes cost savings as well. So it's both for the environment and the business. It's good for in both ways. And Finally, I think evaluating and investigating partnerships with startups for NGOs is another thing that companies should be evaluating. And lastly, I would be linking it to my beginning point in response to your first question. Sustainable financial instruments such as sustainability linked bond and green bond, they can be considered to accelerate the green transition. Thank you.
Hanım, thank you very much. It was a really excellent panel. In the step of the conclusion, as the representative of the Turkey, the private sector, we have managed to take some exemplary steps through the green transition, regardless of some the challenge. However, we know that there are so many opportunities, and we all perceive this transition at the core of our businesses. This was all from our end. Hope you all had a fruitful panel, and we achieved to give some perspectives about our journey and our approach to sustainability. Thank you very much.